The hospital PA system crackled to life with an unusual announcement. All available staff to pediatric oncology, 4th floor. Within moments, the hallways of Mercy General fell completely silent. Doctors froze mid-conversation. Nurses stopped pushing medication carts. Visitors stood motionless, sensing something extraordinary unfolding. There, in the center of the pediatric cancer ward, stood Michael Jenkins, the gray-haired janitor who had quietly mopped these same floors for 5 years. He stood surrounded by beautifully wrapped packages, his worn hands trembling slightly as every eye in the hospital fixed upon him. A respected surgeon dropped a clipboard, the clatter echoing through the hushed corridor. No one had suspected the truth about Michael Jenkins until today. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from and what you think will happen next. And if you want more stories that touch the light within your heart, like this video, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. Welcome to In the Heartlight. Let's begin. Michael Jenkins arrived at Mercy General Hospital at precisely 5:30 every morning. The 55-year-old janitor would park his dented 1997 Toyota Corolla in the farthest corner of the staff lot, don his blue uniform, and begin his day with methodical precision. His movements were efficient but unhurried as he moved through the hospital corridors, mop in hand, eyes downcast. "Morning, Michael," Dr. Patel, head of oncology, would say as she passed. Michael would nod respectfully, a slight smile touching his tired eyes before returning to his work. Hardly anyone noticed him. He had mastered the art of invisibility that came with his position. The doctors rushed past, focused on saving lives. The nurses barely glanced up from their charts. Michael was simply part of the hospital's background, as constant and unremarkable as the beige walls he cleaned. But in the pediatric oncology ward, things were different. There, the children noticed everything. "Mr. Jenkins is here," 8-year-old Emma would announce from her bed whenever he entered, her small face lighting up despite the chemotherapy that had claimed her hair and much of her strength. The other children would look up from their beds, finding comfort in his consistent presence. What few people knew was how Michael lingered in this ward, how he timed his cleaning to coincide with the children's most difficult moments, how he hummed softly while he worked, gentle melodies that seemed to ease their pain, how he remembered each child's name, condition, and treatment schedule without ever being told. Each evening, Michael would return to his sparse one-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of town. No television, few possessions, just shelves lined with medical journals and textbooks that seemed oddly out of place for a hospital janitor. On his nightstand, a silver-framed photograph faced his bed, a smiling woman and a young girl with bright eyes full of life and promise. He would touch the frame gently each night before turning out the light. "Good night, my loves," he would whisper to the empty room. It was 3 weeks before Christmas when Michael was mopping near Emma's room and heard the muffled sound of crying. He paused, mop mid-stroke, listening. Through the partially open door, he could hear Emma's parents speaking with Dr. Patel in hushed, urgent tones. "The conventional treatments aren't working," Dr. Patel was saying, compassion evident in her voice. "There's an experimental protocol that might help, but I'm afraid it's not covered by your insurance." "How much?" Emma's father asked, his voice breaking. When Dr. Patel named the figure, the silence that followed spoke volumes. "We've already sold the car," Emma's mother whispered. "The second mortgage? There's nothing left to sell." Michael's hands tightened around the mop handle until his knuckles turned white. Later that day, he saw Emma crying quietly, her small shoulders shaking beneath the hospital blanket. "Hey there, sunshine," he said softly, using the nickname he'd given her months ago when she first arrived. Emma looked up, quickly wiping her tears. "Hi, Mr. Jenkins." "Those are some pretty serious tears for someone so small," Michael said, setting his mop aside and sitting in the chair beside her bed. Emma's lip trembled. "I heard Mom and Dad talking. They think I don't know, but..." Her voice faltered. "I'm not going to get better, am I?" Something flashed across Michael's face. A shadow of such profound pain that had anyone from the medical staff witnessed it, they might have recognized it as the look of a doctor who understood exactly what Emma's prognosis meant. Instead of answering directly, Michael took Emma's fragile hand in his. "You know, when I was younger, I knew a girl a lot like you. Everyone told her there was no hope, but she was stubborn." His voice grew softer. "So very stubborn." "What happened to her?" Emma asked. Michael looked away briefly. "She taught me that medicine doesn't know everything, that sometimes the most powerful healing comes from unexpected places." That evening, instead of going home, Michael drove to a storage facility on the edge of town. He unlocked a unit filled with carefully organized medical equipment and research files. In the back, a large trunk contained envelopes of cash, his life savings. He began counting it, lips moving silently. The next morning, head nurse Sarah Matthews noticed Michael speaking quietly on a cell phone near the staff exit. His normally calm demeanor replaced with urgent intensity. "I don't care what strings you have to pull, James. This can't wait." "Yes, I understand the risk." "No, no one knows. Just make it happen." He fell silent when he spotted Nurse Matthews, quickly pocketing the phone and returning to his cleaning cart. She frowned, watching him wheel it toward the pediatric ward with purpose. Over the next 2 weeks, subtle changes began occurring throughout the cancer ward. Children who had been listless showed renewed energy. Emma, whose condition had been deteriorating rapidly, stabilized. It started with small gifts. A hand-carved wooden puzzle for Tommy, the 7-year-old with leukemia who struggled with fine motor skills. A seemingly simple music box for Lily, whose brain tumor had affected her hearing. A special teddy bear for Emma that she hugged to her chest during painful procedures. "Where did these come from?" Dr. Patel asked Nurse Matthews one morning, examining the unusual craftsmanship of Tommy's puzzle. "The janitor brought them," one of the children answered before the nurse could respond. "Mr. Jenkins makes them himself." Dr. Patel's eyebrows rose. "The janitor?" Nurse Matthews nodded. "He's been bringing them for about 2 weeks now. I checked with administration. There's no policy against it as long as everything is sanitized properly." Dr. Patel picked up the puzzle, studying it with newfound interest. The pieces weren't simply carved, they were weighted differently, requiring Tommy to apply varying pressure. It was, she realized with surprise, a perfect therapy tool for his specific condition. "These aren't ordinary toys," she murmured. As Christmas approached, Michael's gifts became more elaborate. A custom telescope for a teenager who could no longer leave his bed but loved astronomy. A specialized drawing board for a girl with advanced nerve damage who had lost the ability to hold regular pencils. Hospital administration began taking notice, particularly when Emma, whose file had been quietly updated to terminal status, began showing inexplicable improvement. "Her markers are down," Dr. Patel reported during rounds, bewilderment evident in her voice. "I've never seen a response like this without treatment modification." What no one had noticed was how Michael, while cleaning Emma's room each evening, would adjust her IV drip ever so slightly. How the teddy bear he'd given her contained a small, rhythmically pulsing device that rested against her lymph nodes. How he studied her charts when no one was looking, his eyes moving with the practiced precision of someone who understood every notation. Ramirez from Diagnostic Medicine stopped Dr. Patel in the hallway one afternoon. "Have you seen this?" he asked, handing her a medical journal open to a specific page. "I was researching Emma's unusual response, and I found this experimental treatment from 8 years ago." Dr. Patel scanned the article, eyes widening. "This approach mirrors what's happening with Emma, but we're not implementing this protocol." "Look at the author," Dr. Ramirez said quietly. Dr. Patel's eyes moved to the byline and she gasped audibly. The photograph accompanying the article showed a distinguished man in his 40s, confident in his white coat, standing before a prestigious medical center. A man whose features, beneath graying hair and years of wear, unmistakably belonged to their hospital janitor. "Dr. Michael Jenkins," she read aloud. "The Michael Jenkins? The oncologist who developed the revolutionary immunotherapy approach?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. Everyone thought he was dead. On Christmas Eve, Michael arrived at the hospital pulling a large wagon filled with wrapped packages. Each gift bore a child's name, meticulously selected and personalized. The night staff, accustomed to his generosity by now, helped him distribute the presents to the sleeping children's rooms. Emma was awake, her face brighter than it had been in months. "You came," she said when Michael entered with her package. "I promised, didn't I?" he replied, setting the elaborately wrapped box beside her. "Is it another bear?" she asked hopefully. Michael smiled mysteriously. "Something better, but you have to wait until morning to open it." As he turned to leave, Emma reached for his hand. "Mr. Jenkins, why do you help us? The other kids and me?" Michael's eyes misted slightly. "Because a long time ago, I made a promise to never stop fighting for children like you." He didn't notice Dr. Patel standing in the doorway, watching this exchange with Dr. Ramirez and the hospital administrator beside her. "Mr. Jenkins," the administrator called. "We need to speak with you." Michael turned slowly, recognizing from their expressions that everything had changed. The careful life he had constructed was about to shatter. In the conference room, Dr. Patel placed the medical journal on the table between them. "You're Dr. Michael Jenkins," she said. It wasn't a question. Michael sat very still, his janitor's uniform suddenly looking like a poor disguise. "8 years ago, you were pioneering advanced treatments at Johns Hopkins," the administrator continued. "Then, after your daughter died, you disappeared. Everyone assumed that I'd killed myself," Michael finished, his voice suddenly different, educated, precise. "That would have been easier." "The gifts," Dr. Patel said. "They're not just toys, are they?" Michael met her gaze directly. "They're prototypes, delivery mechanisms for targeted treatment compounds. Non-invasive, painless. You've been treating these children without authorization," the administrator said, his tone grave, "without consent." "I've been helping children your protocols had abandoned," Michael replied, steel entering his voice. "Emma was given 3 weeks to live under your care. Check her latest blood work." Before anyone could respond, an urgent page came through. "Code Blue, room 412. Code Blue, room 412. Emma's room." They rushed down the hallway, Michael moving with surprising speed. Inside Emma's room, nurses were already performing emergency procedures as the girl convulsed, her body rejecting something in her system. "Step aside," Michael commanded, his voice carrying such natural authority that the medical staff instinctively obeyed. His janitor's persona fell away completely as he checked Emma's IV, examined her pupils, and called out for specific medications with the confidence of a senior physician. He reached into his pocket, producing a small vial. 10 cc of this now, he directed a nurse. "We can't administer an unknown substance," Dr. Patel objected. Michael's eyes met hers. "Her system is rejecting the conventional anti-rejection medication. This will stabilize her without compromising the progress we've made. You have approximately 40 seconds to decide if your protocols are more important than her life." Dr. Patel hesitated only briefly before nodding to the nurse. Within moments of administering Michael's compound, Emma's vitals began stabilizing. As the emergency passed, silence fell over the room. Michael stood at Emma's bedside, his hand gently stroking her hair, his posture now unmistakably that of the distinguished physician he had once been. The hospital PA system activated. All available staff to pediatric oncology, 4th floor. Word had spread like wildfire. The legendary Dr. Michael Jenkins, whose groundbreaking research had been taught in medical schools for years, was among them. Staff members gathered in the hallway outside Emma's room, staring in disbelief at the man they had passed 1,000 times without a second glance. The entire hospital seemed to hold its breath. "What?" Dr. Patel finally asked. "Why disappear? Why become a janitor when you could have continued your research, saved more children? Michael looked down at Emma, now sleeping peacefully. His eyes took on a faraway look, as if seeing beyond the hospital walls into a painful past. 7 years ago, my daughter Sophia was diagnosed with the same type of cancer as Emma. He began, his voice barely above a whisper. I was at the height of my career then. Dedicated my life to saving children with cancer, received awards for my research, and then suddenly it was my own child fighting for her life. He paused, swallowing hard. I tried everything. Conventional treatments, experimental protocols. I called in favors from every specialist I knew, but Sophia's cancer was particularly aggressive. Michael's hand trembled slightly as he continued. The last night I was working in my lab, I developed a new approach, the very foundation of what's helping Emma now. My wife called, begging me to come to the hospital. She's asking for you, she said. She won't hold on much longer. His voice broke. I told her I needed just one more hour to complete the formulation that might save our daughter. I truly believed I could outrace death with science. A tear slipped down his weathered cheek. When I finally arrived, Sophia had already slipped into a coma. She died without hearing me tell her goodbye, without knowing I was there. My wife never forgave me. She died of heart failure 6 months later. The doctors called it natural causes, but anyone who knew her understood she died of a broken heart. Michael looked up, meeting Dr. Patel's gaze directly. I walked out of my life the day we buried my wife. I couldn't bear the weight of my failure. I had saved hundreds of children but couldn't save my own daughter. I couldn't even be there when she needed me most. His voice grew steadier, more resolved. I promised my wife before she passed that I would help children like Sophia. Not as the celebrated Dr. Jenkins, with his committees and research grants, but as someone who would never again put science before the human moments that matter most. When conventional medicine failed Sophia, I developed experimental treatments. Too late for her, but perhaps not too late for others. He straightened, facing the gathered staff. I came here because this hospital treats the highest percentage of uninsured pediatric cancer patients in the state. Children who fall through the cracks. I brought what I had left, my knowledge, my techniques, and whatever funds I could gather. As a janitor, the administrator said incredulously. Michael smiled sadly. As a doctor, I was limited by protocols, committees, paperwork. As a janitor, I was invisible. Free to observe, to help without interference. These children don't care about credentials. They only care that someone fights for them when everyone else has given up. The silence that followed was profound. Dr. Patel stepped forward. Your treatments, they're working. Not just working, Dr. Ramirez added. They're revolutionary. Emma's latest scans show almost complete remission. That's impossible, another doctor murmured. Michael shook his head. Not impossible, just beyond conventional approaches. Each gift was customized to deliver treatment specific to each child's genetic markers. He reached for Emma's teddy bear, turning it over to reveal a nearly invisible medical device. Non-invasive immunotherapy delivered directly to affected systems. Dr. Patel stared at him. You've been advancing your research all this time, alone. Not entirely alone, Michael admitted. There are others, researchers who believed in my work even after I disappeared. They helped refine the delivery systems. The hospital administrator cleared his throat. Dr. Jenkins, whatever your intentions, you've practiced medicine without proper authorization. There are protocols, regulations. Richard, Dr. Patel interrupted sharply. Perhaps before we discuss protocols, we should acknowledge that there are 12 children in this ward who were considered terminal 3 weeks ago. Children who are now showing unprecedented improvement. Emma stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She looked confused at the crowd gathered in her room. Mr. Jenkins? She called weakly. Is everything okay? Michael moved to her side immediately. Everything's fine, sunshine. How are you feeling? Better, she said, smiling. Much better. Can I open my present now? The room collectively held its breath as Michael handed her the package. Inside was what appeared to be another teddy bear, but as Emma hugged it, Michael explained softly, "This one doesn't have medicine, Emma. You don't need it anymore. This one is just a bear." Tears filled the child's eyes as she understood the implication. "You mean?" "We need to run more tests," Dr. Patel interjected, ever the cautious physician. But her voice softened as she added, "But yes, Emma, your latest results are very promising." The news spread throughout the hospital within hours. By morning, every staff member knew the truth about the quiet janitor who had worked among them for years. Knew that while pushing his mop through their halls, he had been secretly advancing medical science and saving children they had deemed beyond help. 6 months later, Mercy General Hospital looked much the same, but with one significant difference. The former janitor's closet on the 4th floor had been converted into a small but state-of-the-art research office. Inside, Dr. Michael Jenkins divided his time between developing treatments and, to everyone's surprise, continuing to occasionally push a mop through the hallways. "Old habits," he explained when questioned. "Sometimes I think better when I'm moving." The hospital had established the Jenkins Foundation, dedicated to providing experimental treatments to uninsured children. Many of Michael's former colleagues had joined the effort, amazed to discover their long-lost peer had been advancing his research all along. Emma, now in complete remission, visited regularly. On this particular day, she found Michael in his office, reviewing patient files. "Dr. Jenkins," she called. She had struggled with the transition from Mr. Jenkins, but understood now the significance of using his rightful title. He looked up with a smile that transformed his weathered face. "Emma, no treatment today? What brings you here?" She held out a clumsily wrapped package. "I made you something." Inside was a handmade picture frame containing a drawing of Michael, half in janitor's blue, half in doctor's white, surrounded by the children of the cancer ward. "Our hero," Emma explained, pointing to the title she had carefully written at the bottom. "Mom says you saved my life." Michael's eyes glistened as he placed the frame on his desk. "You saved mine too, Emma. You and all the others." He gestured to the children's ward visible through his window. "You reminded me why I became a doctor in the first place." Later that afternoon, a young resident found Michael mopping the floor outside a newly admitted patient's room. "Dr. Jenkins," the resident said hesitantly, "you don't have to do that anymore. We have staff for cleaning." Michael leaned on his mop, glancing through the doorway at the frightened child inside. "Some of my best diagnostic work happens with a mop in my hand, Dr. Chen. You'd be surprised what you notice when people think you're invisible." He nodded toward the child's chart. "For instance, I'd reconsider that treatment approach. Check the patient's lymphatic response to the initial therapy. I think you'll find a targeted approach through the T-cell pathway more effective." The young doctor stared at him in amazement. "I'll order those tests right away." Michael smiled, returning to his mopping. "And while you're waiting for results, maybe sit with him a while. Medicine isn't just about protocols and procedures. Sometimes the most powerful healing begins with simply being present." As he moved down the hallway, continuing his familiar routine despite his restored status, staff members nodded respectfully. Patients watched him pass with whispered awe. But the children, they still called out happily, "Mr. Jenkins is here," as if nothing had changed. And in the ways that mattered most, nothing had. The man who had once been among the world's most brilliant oncologists had found his true healing in humility. In the simple act of showing up day after day for those who needed him most, whether with groundbreaking treatments or simply a mop and a gentle word of hope. In a hospital where everyone rushed to save lives, he had shown them that sometimes the most profound medicine came disguised in the most ordinary packaging. And in a world increasingly focused on credentials and status, he reminded them daily that true healing could come from the most unexpected sources. Even from a janitor with gifts to share. Love this story? Hit that like button and subscribe to In the Heartlight for more. Don't forget to check out the video currently on your screen. You won't want to miss it. See you in the next one.